Democracy. Democracy is a form of government where power rests with the people, either directly or through elected representatives. The concept of democracy traces back to ancient Greece, particularly Athens, where citizens had the direct power to deliberate and decide on legislation. Modern democracies, however, are predominantly representative. Citizens elect officials to make decisions on their behalf, ensuring that the government's actions reflect the electorate's will. There are several subtypes of democracy, including direct democracy, representative democracy, and constitutional democracy. Direct democracy allows citizens to vote on laws and policies directly. Representative democracy, which is more common, has citizens elect representatives who then make decisions. Constitutional democracy operates under a constitution that limits the powers of the government and protects individual rights. The principles of democracy emphasize political equality, where every citizen has an equal say in the workings of the government and the rule of law, which means that laws apply equally to all citizens and leaders. Notable examples of modern democratic governments include the United States, Canada, and many countries in Europe. Monarchy. Monarchy is one of the oldest forms of government where a single person, the monarch, rules the country. The authority of the monarch can vary significantly depending on the specific type of monarchy. In absolute monarchies, the monarch has almost complete control over the government and is not bound by written law or constitution. Historically, monarchs in such systems often claimed divine right, suggesting their authority was granted by God. On the other hand, constitutional monarchies limit the monarch's power within the confines of a constitution or legislative framework. In these systems, the monarch often serves as a ceremonial figurehead, while elected bodies govern the country. Examples include the United Kingdom, where the Queen plays a symbolic role while the Parliament exercises legislative power. Monarchies can be hereditary, where the crown is passed down through family lines, or elective, where the monarch is chosen by some form of election. Despite its ancient roots, monarchy remains a prevalent form of government in several countries worldwide, blending traditional authority with modern governance structures. Federal monarchy. A federal monarchy is a government system that blends federalism with monarchy. In this setup, the country is divided into regions, or states, each with its own government, but united under a single monarch who serves as the head of state. This system allows for regional autonomy while maintaining national unity under the monarchy. The division of powers between the central government and the regional governments varies, with the monarch's role ranging from largely ceremonial to having significant influence over national affairs. Examples of federal monarchies include the United Arab Emirates, UAE, where each of the 7 emirates is governed by its own monarch, and Malaysia, where the head of state is elected from among the rulers of the Malay states. Federal monarchies are particularly effective in countries with diverse populations or large territories, allowing regions to maintain their distinct identities while contributing to a unified national structure. The success of this system hinges on the careful balance between central authority and regional autonomy, ensuring cooperation and stability across the nation. Authoritarianism. Authoritarianism is characterized by the concentration of power in a single leader or a small elite not constitutionally responsible to the public. This form of government often limits political pluralism, suppresses dissent, and maintains significant control over many aspects of life, including the economy, education, and personal freedoms. Leaders in authoritarian regimes often come to power through non-democratic means such as coups, revolutions, or inheritances. They maintain their rule through mechanisms like political repression, propaganda, and the use of security forces to quash opposition. Examples of authoritarian states include North Korea, where the Kim family has maintained control for decades, and historical examples like Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler. Despite its oppressive nature, authoritarianism can also foster rapid decision-making and implementation of policies, which can be advantageous in times of crisis. However, The lack of political freedoms and accountability often leads to widespread human rights abuses and economic mismanagement. Totalitarianism. Totalitarianism represents an extreme form of authoritarianism, where the state seeks to control every aspect of public and private life. This type of government is marked by a single-party rule led by a dictator, extensive propaganda, and a highly centralized economy. Totalitarian regimes often employ extensive surveillance, censorship, and state-sponsored terror to maintain control and suppress any opposition. The government aims to control not only political and economic matters, but also the beliefs and values of its citizens. Historical examples of totalitarian regimes include Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union and Mao Zedong's China, where the state orchestrated large-scale purges and re-education campaigns to consolidate power and enforce ideological conformity. In these societies, individual freedoms are virtually non-existent, and the state exercises near total control over the media, education, and even personal relationships. The result is often a highly repressive society with limited room for dissent or personal autonomy. Oligarchy. Oligarchy is a form of government where power is vested in a small group of individuals, often distinguished by royalty, wealth, family ties, corporate, or military control. Unlike monarchies, where a single ruler holds power, or democracies, where power is distributed among the people, oligarchies concentrate power in the hands of a few. This small group makes decisions that benefit their interests, often at the expense of the general populace. Historical examples of oligarchies include the aristocratic regimes in ancient Greece, such as Sparta, where a small group of elites ruled over the majority. Modern examples can be seen in certain corporate or political environments, where a few influential figures dominate decision-making processes. Oligarchies can be stable and efficient as decision-making is streamlined, but they often suffer from corruption and disconnect from the broader population's needs. This concentration of power can lead to social and economic inequalities, fostering dissent and unrest among the populace. Before we move on, please help our little channel grow. Smash the like button and subscribe. Now, on to the next one. Theocracy. Theocracy is a form of government where religious leaders control the state, often claiming to rule on behalf of a deity or a higher religious authority. In a theocracy, the state's legal system is based on religious law, and religious officials hold significant political power. Historical examples include the rule of the Papal States in Italy and ancient Egypt, where pharaohs were considered divine. Modern examples include Iran, where the supreme leader, a religious figure, holds ultimate political authority and the laws are based on Islamic principles. Theocratic governments often merge religious doctrine with state policy, affecting everything from legal judgments to educational systems and personal behavior. This fusion can provide a unified and coherent framework for governance, but often at the expense of personal freedoms and diversity of thought. Critics argue that theocracies can be oppressive, particularly towards those who do not adhere to the dominant religion, and can limit social and cultural development. Republic. A republic is a form of government in which the country is considered a public matter, and the head of state is an elected or nominated president, not a hereditary monarch. Republics emphasize the rule of law, where the government's powers are limited by a constitution or legal framework. Citizens in a republic have the power to elect their leaders and representatives, ensuring that the government reflects the will of the people. There are several types of republics, including presidential republics, where the president is the head of state and government, such as in the United States, and parliamentary republics, where the president is a ceremonial figurehead while the prime minister heads the government, as in India. Republics promote political participation, accountability, and the protection of individual rights. However, the effectiveness of a republic depends on the political culture, the strength of institutions, and the engagement of its citizens in the political process. Socialism. Socialism is a political and economic theory advocating for collective or governmental ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods. Socialists argue that this system can reduce inequalities and provide a fairer distribution of wealth and resources. There are different degrees of socialism, ranging from democratic socialism, which operates within a democratic framework, to more centralized and planned economies, like those seen in the former Soviet Union. In democratic socialist systems, the government may own major industries, but still allows for private enterprise and operates within a democratic political system. Countries like Sweden and Denmark are often cited as examples, combining a strong welfare state with a capitalist economy. More rigid forms of socialism, such as communism, seek to abolish private property altogether, aiming for a classless society. Critics argue that socialism can lead to inefficiencies and lack of incentives for innovation, but proponents believe it can achieve greater social justice and economic security for all citizens. Anarcho-socialism. Anarcho-socialism is not technically a form of government, but rather a political philosophy that combines elements of anarchism and socialism. It advocates for the abolition of the state and capitalism, seeking to create a society where the means of production are collectively owned and managed by the community. Anarcho-socialists believe that true freedom can only be achieved when hierarchical structures such as governments and corporations are dismantled. In place of these institutions, they propose decentralized, self-managed communities where decisions are made democratically through direct participation. The idea is that without the coercive power of the state and the inequalities inherent in capitalism, individuals can cooperate freely and equitably. Anarcho-socialism draws from the works of thinkers like Mikhail Bakunin and Peter Kropotkin, who argued that human beings are naturally inclined towards mutual aid and cooperation when freed from oppressive systems. This philosophy differs from state socialism, which advocates for state control of resources. Instead, anarcho-socialists envision a stateless society where power is distributed horizontally and communities are self-governed. Critics argue that achieving and maintaining such a system would be challenging without descending into chaos, but proponents believe it is the path to a truly just society. Fascism. Fascism is an authoritarian and nationalistic right-wing system of government and social organization. It emerged in the early 20th century, most notably in Italy under Benito Mussolini, and in Germany under Adolf Hitler. Fascist governments are characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, strong regimentation of society and the economy, and often a policy of belligerent nationalism and racism. Fascists believe in a strong, centralized state led by a supreme leader who embodies the will of the nation. The state exercises control over all aspects of life, including the economy, education, and the media. Fascist regimes also emphasize aggressive nationalism and often pursue expansionist policies. They reject democratic ideals, focusing instead on the unity and purity of the nation, often at the expense of marginalized groups. The result is typically a militaristic and repressive society, where individual freedoms are curtailed and dissent is harshly punished. Communism. Communism is a political and economic ideology that aims for a classless society in which all property and resources are communally owned, eliminating the need for private ownership. Originating from the works of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, communism envisions a society where the proletariat, or working class, rises against the bourgeoisie, or capitalist class, to establish a system where everyone works for the common good. The state, under communism, plans and controls the economy, aiming to ensure equal distribution of wealth and the elimination of social classes. Historical implementations of communism, such as in the Soviet Union and Maoist China, involved centralized planning and state ownership of industries, but also led to political repression and economic inefficiencies. While communism seeks to create an egalitarian society, critics argue that it can lead to authoritarianism and a lack of personal freedoms. Despite its challenges, the idea of communism continues to influence political movements and discussions about economic and social justice globally. What do you think about these types of governments? I'm looking forward to reading your comments below. Click the like button, subscribe, and stay awesome.